Welcome back, CSE 121, to the exciting part 2, the conclusion of EX20 string methods. I'm up to P9 here, and we're going to make a new variable called school no spaces, NOSP, or however you do that, and then we're going to print out school with no spaces. And we saw how to do that before, but we're going to make a variable that basically uses the replace method. This should be bold here, but we're going to use a replace method. So if you're not sure about the replace method, that is a string method, and you just look for replace down in the R's, and there you'll see an example of replace, and you'll see what it does. It'll just replace things out that are in there. You could place one thing for the other. And we're going to replace spaces with no spaces. So we're going to replace a space with an empty string. So for this one, for P9, we're going to make a variable first. So I'll go back here, and I'll call it school no spaces, and I'll basically make it equal replace, and I think it's school.replace, and in the parentheses there we'll put the two things that we're going to replace. We're going to replace space and then a comma and then with an empty string, which is without a space in it. So what should happen there? And then now we're just going to say P9 equals and use our print function, and we're going to do school no spaces. So that's all we should do there. And what we should have is just print out school with no spaces. So let's see what happens. And there it is. Pretty exciting. And going back here now to P10, we're going to convert it to a list. So the variable school spaces is going to be converted to a list, so that each letter is going to be its own element of a list. Who thought of this anyway? This is crazy. So P10 is basically going to be converting it to a list. So what it's doing here is say, use the list method. We're going to just say list, and then in parentheses, we're going to put school no space. Now we're printing that, and let's see if we make it a variable. Print the variable, so it's converted to a list. So we're going to print out that one with the list method. So let's see what happens. And I did not print it. That's why I'm not saying anything. So let's print it here. And there it is. There's all our letters of a list, and without any spaces inside there. And P11 says print the variable now as a list as sorted. So we can use a sorted method. There's two ways. There's a sort, which is a list method. If you went in here and you looked at methods, you'll see under list methods, there's a sort, which you can use. Here's sort. It just sorts a list. So we already have a list, so we could just use that. There's also a built-in function called sorted that you could use. It won't really make a difference. So I'll just use sort since we have a list here. So I'll do P11 equals and then print. And then we'll just do sort, and then we'll do school no space. So I think that's converted to we'll have to double check if that's a list. We'll see if this works here. So we're actually going to be putting this on the outside, and then we shouldn't have to put anything in there. So let's see what our last print statement looks like. And we're getting an error because it's a string object. It says print the variable now as a list sorted. So I think we're going to have to make this a new variable first. So let's just go back here and put another little step in here of this one and make it a new list. And I'm just going to call it school no spaces list. I'll call it list like that, so I make a whole new variable because it's still, even though I printed it as a list, it didn't convert it necessarily to a list. So I'm going to do this first and make sure I convert it to a list, and then I'm going to print this new name. But again, it's saying it's a string. It's not seeing it as a list, so that's why it's not doing that. So we have to take an extra step here to make a variable to make it kind of a permanent, so it is a new list. We're not just, even though we printed the other one out as a list, we want to make a new list. So let's see if this works for us. And we're getting none, so it's not sorting for us. And I'll try this, actually, before I print it out. And you wouldn't know this, but let's just sort it first. Let's just do a sort first, and then just print out our list. I don't think it likes printing it and doing that all at the same time. Let's just see what happens here. And now we got it. So now you can see it's sorted, and you can see it's sorting in order. So all the C's are first, all the capital letters are first, actually, because they use the ASCII numbers, I believe. So it's using capital letters first. That's why it's sorting it that way. And we'd have to check if sorted worked any different, but it's using the capital letters, then starting with A and going back. So we have that, and then we can also do one that does reverse for 12. So let's check out what 12 says. It says sorted in reverse. we'll just do this one more time. I'll take this again, and I'll do sort. And if you look at the sort method, they have a reverse, an optional reverse equals true here that you could use. So I'll throw that in there. I'll put reverse equals true. And then for P12, I'll print that out and see what we get. And I spelled reverse wrong. And now we're okay. So now you can see it did the Y's first, went backwards, and then did the capital letters last. So that's P12. So now we're going to print the list school no spaces without duplicate letters. So we're going to go through and just find a method to remove duplicates, and it's actually right here. So you can just use this and try this out. There's different ways to do this, and if you weren't sure, they even have a thing down here, Python reference down here, how to remove list duplicates. So it's right here of how to do it, and they actually kind of convert it to a dictionary and then back to a list is what they do in this little section here. So they have an example here of how to do it. So you could check this out if you're just curious of how it works, because you can see it says from keys, so it's converting it to a dictionary, and then since there aren't keys, it's actually removing any duplicates. So because dictionaries can't have duplicate keys in there. So that's kind of, it's like a little bit of a hack, I guess, but that's the way it's kind of set up. So you could just try it out from here. So even if you took it right off the sheet here and did this, and you pasted this here, this is called, I already have a variable called this, so then you could just print it out for P13. You could just say P13 equals print, and then it's going to print out school no dupes. And there you can see those are only the letters in the word, so there's only one E, one L. So now we have it with no dupes. We're getting towards the end here. And then it says print no school. It prints, then for P14, it says print them joined together as a string. So you could use a string and actually join them with nothing in between. So we're just going to put everything together back as a string. All the single letters, they were a list, and now we're going to put them back together as a string. So you could do this here, or you could just use this join thing. So you could do this. So that's going to be P14. So that's kind of what it's going to do, and I'll just say P14 equals. And you can kind of do that just to see what it does. And just make sure you're using the same variable name, and I'll run that and see what happens. It should take this, all these letters down here, and just kind of put them all together. So there it is. So those are the letters in Warren County College. And here we go, the big finish here. It says print out the length of the previous print. And just make it a new variable called school characters. So that way you'll know how many characters are actually in the school letters. So you're going to be using that. So we're going to make a variable called school chars. So I'll do that. So I'll say school chars equals, and then I'll put the same thing that was inside here. I'll use this join here, and then I'll just print out the length, and I'll make that P15, and I'll print the length of school chars, and make sure I have everything spelled right. And I think I may need a third bracket there. Let's see what I have here. School chars, invalid syntax, so I maybe don't need that one. And I have this spelled wrong, that's why I ran that. Okay, I have that spelled wrong. All these C's and things in there. So I have that spelled wrong, so let's run it now. And there's 14. So now, after all that, you get to find out that there's 14 characters, separate characters in Warren County Community College. So that's your big finish there after 15 printouts. You got to learn about some of the string methods, a little bit of list methods and conversions. And that's not everything, but it's just a little bit. So that was just a little exercise just to keep this as a reference so you remember how to do that stuff. That's kind of what this is for. So it wasn't that exciting. It might have been a little bit of fun, maybe not, but at least you have a reference here of your string methods of these different things to try out when you may need it. And again, this was just from going from one word. We're going to do another exercise with a bigger group of words, and then work with some open files. But that's EX20.